Ethan Langford had barely stepped back through the glass doors of Paw Haven retreat when he heard it. The kind of comment that sticks to your ribs like ice. Another rich clown and his dumb mutt. Easy money. It hit him like a slap, sharp and unexpected. He had only left moments ago, supposedly to retrieve his wallet from the car, though, truthfully, he hadn't forgotten it. He had planned this return, this double-take, for a reason. But what he hadn't anticipated was hearing those words, dripping with disdain, spoken so casually by the very staff who had beamed at him just minutes earlier. They had no clue who he really was. Ethan stood silently, tucked just behind a vine-covered divider that separated the reception area from the staff lounge. The polished marble counter felt cool beneath his fingertips, grounding him as a familiar fury brewed quietly beneath his calm surface. The voice belonged to a young woman in a crisp uniform, the kind that projected warmth and competence to unsuspecting clients. She laughed again, a short, bitter chuckle, joined this time by a deeper, older voice. Male. Smug. $2,000 a week for a dog to sit in AC and munch on organic kibble, the man said with a snort. And they think we're the idiots. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he didn't move. Not yet. This was exactly why he'd come. Just 5 days earlier, he was seated in the corner office of his corporate headquarters, buried in a rising tide of flagged complaints. They were different this time. Less about missed appointments or billing errors, more about something harder to define. Cold behavior, detached staff, dogs coming home skittish. One review haunted him. Beautiful spa. My dog cried for hours after. Something's wrong. His executive assistant, Jordan, had suggested dispatching a regional manager to investigate, but Ethan had shaken his head. This wasn't about sending someone to patch over the cracks with polished words. This was about truth. No, he'd said, I need to see it for myself. And so he did. Disguised in faded jeans, a baseball cap tugged low, and thick-rimmed glasses that slightly skewed his face, he had introduced himself to the front desk that morning as Mr. Ellis, a quiet, nervous man with a soft voice and a golden retriever named Cooper. No one had questioned it. At first glance, the facility had looked pristine. Earth-toned walls, eucalyptus and lavender gently perfuming the air, calming piano music drifting from hidden speakers. Staff uniforms were immaculate, smiles wide. It was exactly what a luxury pet retreat should look like, on the surface. But now, concealed behind ivy and faux stone, Ethan heard the reality, the rot beneath the polish. She went on and on about how her dog gets separation anxiety. The woman scoffed, her tone cruel. Lady, you're the one with anxiety. Another wave of laughter. The woman mimicked a soothing voice. Of course, ma'am. Then snorted, and I tossed the leash like a sack of laundry. Ethan exhaled, slow and controlled, but his heart was pounding. Not from anger alone, but from disappointment and something deeper, a sense of betrayal. Because Cooper wasn't just a dog, he was family. Cooper had curled beside him on the nights Ethan couldn't sleep, had licked away tears during the worst of his divorce, and had loyally padded through the office when Ethan was still building the company from scratch. Cooper had never judged him, never demanded anything but love. And now he was in the hands of people who didn't just lack compassion, they openly mocked it. This wasn't about bad service. It was about trust. And that trust was being shattered, quietly, behind closed doors. A third voice interrupted. This one was younger, softer, a little uncertain. We probably shouldn't talk like this, the new voice said. What if someone hears? Silence, then more laughter. Relax, the man sneered. What's the boss gonna do? Fly down from his penthouse and sniff us out himself? Ethan's fingers curled slowly into a fist. Not in rage, but in resolve. He had heard enough. Without a word, he stepped away, slipping out the front doors unnoticed. Outside, the sun had risen higher, casting long shadows across the empty valet lane. He paused beneath the shade of the overhang, his eyes drifting back through the tinted glass. Beyond the spa's frosted double doors, he could just make out the golden tip of Cooper's tail. He wasn't going to charge back in. Not yet. This wasn't just about one incident or a few unkind words. He needed more. He needed proof. And, most importantly, he needed to understand, was this cruelty isolated, or was it woven into the very fabric of this place? Because if he, the owner, had been treated with such dismissive mockery, what was happening to everyday customers? To elderly clients trusting these people with their aging companions? To children clinging to the promise that their dog would be safe and loved? And if the staff behaved like this when no one was watching, what were they doing when they were truly alone with the animals? Ethan took a long breath. This wasn't just a business problem. It was a personal one, and it had just become a mission. If stories like this sting a little, stay with us, because what Ethan uncovered next would shake the very foundation of everything he built. The following morning, Ethan returned to Paw Haven under the same unassuming disguise. To the staff, he was still Mr. Ellis, harmless, soft-spoken, a man overly attached to his golden retriever, Cooper, the kind of customer they smiled at up front, then mocked the moment the door closed. No one suspected he was the owner. No one saw the fire burning just beneath his calm eyes. He asked politely if he could take a short tour, said it helped ease his nerves to know where his dog was being kept. He even smiled, sheepishly, like someone used to, being dismissed. Troy, the manager on duty that day, oozed the kind of confidence that comes from thinking no one is watching. He wore a suit too tight in the shoulders, cologne too thick in the air, and a grin that barely reached his eyes. Still, he agreed, reluctantly. Hidden in Ethan's shirt pocket was a pen. It looked ordinary, but inside it held a tiny lens, recording everything. As they walked past the polished front desk and through the glass doors leading into the main care wing, the illusion began to unravel. The lobby's soothing scent of lavender faded quickly, replaced by something mustier, ammonia barely covering the stench of old kibble and unwashed corners. The floor wasn't filthy, but it wasn't clean either, smudges by the water bowls, fur clinging to the baseboards. Ethan's eye, sharpened by years of meticulous oversight, picked out every detail. One kennel had water stains crusted on the glass, streaked like dried tears. And he noticed something else, the angles of the surveillance cameras. Several were angled just wide enough to leave entire areas in the shadows. Intentional blind spots. Troy, unfazed, gestured toward the so-called deluxe suite. Premium experience, he said. Aromatherapy, plush bedding, all the bells and whistles. But when Ethan glanced in, Cooper's blanket was crumpled in a corner. The water bowl was tipped. And the ambient music? A grating loop of synthetic instrumentals, not calming, not gentle, just loud enough to agitate. Ethan said nothing, because this wasn't about proving a point. Not yet. They moved on to the outdoor play area, a space meant to resemble a luxury dog park. From afar, it looked idyllic. Turf grass, shaded corners, agility equipment neatly arranged. But up close, Ethan saw the cracks. Flies hovered around a half-rinsed water station. Mud clung to the paws of a German shepherd pacing alone in the corner, his tongue hanging out, his movements tight with anxiety. "He's been out here for hours," came a voice from behind. Ethan turned. A young woman, maybe in her early 20s, stood holding a bin of clean towels. Her ponytail was fraying at the edges, and her gloves were damp. "He has separation issues," she added, eyes down. "No one's taken him in." "What's your name?" Ethan asked softly. "Marissa," she replied, voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not supposed to talk without a supervisor around." He nodded, gentle. "Thank you, Marissa." She vanished into the hallway, the only one so far who seemed to care. As they walked back inside, they passed the grooming area. A white Maltese trembled on the table, tiny paws shaking. The male groomer muttered under his breath, "Stupid little rat," and squeezed shampoo from an unlabeled bottle. "What kind of shampoo do you use?" Ethan asked. "Hypoallergenic blend," the man replied without looking up. But Ethan had seen the bottle. Dusty, sticky, expired 2 years ago. He didn't react, just made a note. His silence now wasn't passivity, it was precision. Later, he asked if he could check in on Cooper. He claimed nerves, said it would help to see him. After some resistance, Troy caved. Just this once. Inside Cooper's kennel, Ethan found the dog alert, but subdued. His posture told the truth his tail tried to hide. The bedding hadn't been changed. The water dish was dry. A harsh chemical smell lingered in the air, likely overused cleaning spray meant to mask something worse. Cooper lifted his head. His eyes found Ethan's, and for a moment, the disguise fell away. Ethan knelt. "Hey, buddy, you okay?" Cooper nudged his muzzle through the bars, licking his fingers with slow, deliberate affection. That was the moment Ethan knew. This wasn't about one bad apple. It wasn't a training issue. It wasn't about one lazy employee or a few neglected kennels. It was rot. Systemic, cultural, embedded in the bones of the business. As Ethan turned to leave, he caught sight of Troy again, smirking in the hallway, scrolling through security footage on his phone. "He looked like he was gonna cry leaving his dog here," Troy chuckled into the staff break room. "What a marshmallow!" Laughter followed. Then another voice. Familiar. "These people are insane," Jessica sneered. "They treat dogs like babies and us like nannies. If they only knew half of what goes on back here." Ethan didn't walk in. He didn't shout. He just stood outside the door, fists clenched in his jacket pockets. She was still talking, still mocking, still unaware someone was listening. But someone was. That night, Ethan returned again, under the pretense of dropping off a special toy. The receptionist was curt but let him through. The facility felt different after dark, quieter, dimmer. The soft gold lighting now felt tired, like the mask was slipping. It no longer felt like a sanctuary. It felt like a hotel after hours, too quiet for a place caring for lives. He lingered by the grooming wing, and that's when he saw her. A small Westie on the table, squirming, whining. A groomer with tight blonde curls held her down with one hand while texting with the other. The dog yelped. "Drama queen," the groomer muttered. Ethan stepped closer. The shampoo had a handwritten label. Oat Soothe. He didn't recognize it. When the groomer turned to grab scissors, Ethan moved in. The bottle was sticky, dust-covered, expired 2 years ago. He snapped a photo. Later, on his way back to the kennels, he heard crying. Not a dog, a human voice. Near the emergency storage closet, he found her, a girl no older than 19, crouched against the wall, wiping at her eyes. Her name tag read Lena. She flinched as he approached. "Sorry, I'll move." "You okay?" he asked, kneeling. "I was supposed to clean Suite 3, but they had me mopping the lobby. No one cleaned it. That dog's going home tomorrow. It still smells like urine. I told Troy and he said, if they notice, we'll just offer a discount." Her voice cracked. "I feel gross. I thought this place was different. I love animals." Ethan rested a hand on her shoulder. "You're doing the right thing. Don't let people like that steal your kindness." She looked at him, surprised. "You sound like you actually care." "I do," he replied, and he meant it, more than she could know. Before leaving, he stopped by Cooper's suite one last time. The water had been refilled, but it reeked faintly of bleach. The bowl hadn't been rinsed. Cooper lifted his head, eyes glassy, and pressed his face to the bars. Ethan swallowed the lump rising in his throat. "Hang in there, boy. I'm gonna fix this." And he would. Because tomorrow, everything would change. When Ethan returned again, he came with a plan. He asked to speak with a supervisor. Jessica appeared, all fake warmth and weaponized customer service. "Of course, sir," she said. "Is something wrong with Cooper?" Ethan kept his voice even, calm. "I just noticed some irritation under his collar. Thought I should mention it." Jessica didn't even blink. "Oh, that's probably just stress. Happens all the time when dogs miss home." Jessica's voice was smooth, mechanical, rehearsed. But Ethan heard the indifference behind the words. He didn't flinch. "Do you know what shampoo you've been using on him?" he asked, keeping his tone neutral. Jessica hesitated, just for a split second. But in that pause, Ethan could see the wheels turning. "It's our in-house blend. Vet approved," she replied quickly, almost too quickly. "Can I see the bottle?" She blinked. I'd have to check with Troy." "Please do," Ethan said firmly, but not unkindly. Her expression shifted, tightening into something between frustration and caution. She turned on her heel and disappeared down the hallway. She didn't know he had followed. From a quiet distance, Ethan watched her unlock a cabinet in the back room, a place that wasn't meant for customer eyes. Behind the door, shelves of mismatched, unlabeled bottles lined up like secrets, some half empty, some filled with liquids in varying shades of yellow and brown. She grabbed one of the newer-looking bottles and returned to the counter with practiced ease. "This is what we used," she said, handing it over with forced confidence. Ethan examined it carefully. No label, no ingredients, no expiration date. "Where's the safety data sheet for this product?" he asked, his voice still calm but firmer now, edged with quiet authority. Jessica froze. We don't usually—" "You're supposed to," Ethan interrupted, no longer pretending, "especially with dogs that have known skin sensitivities." She shifted again, arms folding across her chest. "We've never had complaints before." Ethan looked her in the eye. "You've never had the owner watching before." He didn't wait for a response. He turned and walked away, heart pounding, not from adrenaline, but from clarity. Back in the lobby, he requested Cooper's service log. The receptionist hesitated before retrieving a thin folder. Inside, a single line. "Standard wash, deluxe suite." No grooming details, no feeding times, no behavioral observations, just a shell of what should have been a detailed report. Ethan closed the folder slowly. Then he saw it. A bulletin board near the staff lounge. Employee of the Month photos, neatly arranged in a grid. Every one of them. Troy. Jessica. Repeated month after month. Faces that knew how to smile when the higher-ups visited. The same ones who cut corners and silenced complaints. There was no Marissa. No Lena. No sign of the ones who actually cared. That night, Ethan sat in his car outside the spa. It was beautiful under the soft glow of the exterior lights. Calm, tranquil, inviting. But it was a lie. Tomorrow, that illusion would be torn away. At dawn, Ethan parked several blocks away and walked the rest of the distance on foot. No luxury vehicle, no company badge, just the same hoodie and cap. But this time, he wasn't here to observe. He was here to act. He wore a discreet mic clipped inside his collar. The plan was simple. One final confirmation, one last chance to hear the truth unfiltered, raw, unedited. He slipped quietly down the side corridor and waited just outside the staff break room. Minutes passed. Then footsteps, the hiss of a coffee machine, the scrape of chairs. Laughter. "I swear, that woman yesterday nearly cried because we gave her dog the wrong treat bag," Jessica said, giggling. "As if her poodle knows the difference between beef and salmon," Kyle added, older, more bitter. More laughter. Kyle again. "It's not the dogs who need the spa, it's the owners. They're the ones with the separation anxiety." The room erupted in chuckles. Jessica chimed in, voice dripping with mockery. "If one more of these anxious pet parents asks for a report card, I'm just gonna make one up. Your dog did great. Spoke French, graduated top of the class." Ethan didn't move. His pulse was steady. His mind was clear. He wasn't shocked anymore. This wasn't venting. It was routine, a ritual born from arrogance. Then Kyle's voice came again, this time sealing it. If that idiot CEO ever showed up, I'd hand him a mop and tell him to clean the kennels himself. Bet he couldn't last a day. Jessica laughed. He probably thinks this place runs on fairy dust. Too busy counting his money from his penthouse. That was enough. Ethan stepped back into the hallway and pulled out his phone. He forwarded the audio file directly to Jordan. Then he called. Get legal on standby. I need HR clearance to act immediately. He hung up. A cleaning cart rolled by, mop trailing water across the floor like a trail of neglect. Ethan followed it toward the grooming wing. As he approached the door, it swung open. Jessica stood there, startled. Oh, Mr. Ellis, right? Her voice was fake sweet, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. Ethan took a breath. No, he said, voice steady. My name isn't Ellis. She blinked. What? It's Ethan Langford. I'm the CEO of Paw Haven. Silence detonated between them like shattered glass. Behind her, Kyle appeared. You're joking. Ethan stared back. Not even a little. He walked past them both into the break room. The room stilled. He turned and faced the staff. For the last 3 days, I've been here, watching, listening, and what I've seen is a betrayal of everything this company stands for. He let the silence stretch, let the weight of his words settle. You mocked our clients, neglected the animals you were entrusted to care for. You used expired products, lied, cut corners, hid behind smiles, and worst of all, you assumed no one would ever hold you accountable. Jessica tried to speak. We didn't mean. Yes, you did, Ethan snapped. You meant every word. And now, you face the consequences. He pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. Jordan's voice came through. Terminations confirmed. Files updated. Jessica stared, pale. You're firing me? You're lucky I'm not pressing charges, Ethan replied. Pack your things. He turned to Kyle. Same goes for you. Behind them, Marissa stood quietly by the towel rack. Her eyes met Ethan's, unsure whether to cry or flee. You did what others wouldn't, he said softly. I saw that too. Within 20 minutes, the spa was transformed. Jessica and Kyle were escorted out. The air shifted. The tension broke. The staff no longer laughed, but they didn't scoff either. Jordan arrived, folder in hand. All store managers are being notified. HR is ready to start interviews. Ethan nodded. We're not replacing them with more of the same. We're starting over. Top down. Jordan looked around. They're shaken. They should be, Ethan said, because this wasn't a bad day. It was a bad culture. He looked toward the spa wing, where Cooper now lay peacefully on clean bedding, brushed and loved, the way he should have been all along. This was what the customers had paid for, what their pets deserved, what Ethan had nearly lost sight of until now. The next morning, the air inside Paw Haven was different. Still, watchful. Whispers replaced laughter. Backs stood straighter, and somewhere near the kennels, Marissa folded towels in silence. Ethan walked in, not as Mr. Ellis, but as Ethan Langford, CEO, and for the first time in days, someone smiled at him, not because they had to, but because they were finally seen. Marissa noticed him approaching and instinctively paused, the uncertainty in her posture almost palpable. She wasn't used to being seen, truly seen. Ethan walked in, slowly, hands relaxed at his sides, his presence calm but unwavering. You've been here a while, haven't you? She nodded. Little over a year. He kept his voice soft. And in that time, how many moments did you feel like speaking up but didn't? Her jaw clenched slightly, her mouth pressing into a quiet line of truth. A lot. A silence passed between them, not uncomfortable, just real. It felt like no one would care, she finally said. Or worse, that I'd be next. That's what happened to Haley. She reported Troy last spring. 2 weeks later, she was gone. Ethan nodded, his eyes holding hers. I read her file. Nothing stood out on record, but I made some calls this morning. What she said was real. He paused, measuring his next words. But you didn't wait for someone to ask. You did what was right. Marissa looked down. It didn't feel brave, it just felt human. And that, Ethan said, is exactly why you're not just staying. You're stepping up. Her head snapped up. Sir, I'm promoting you, he said without hesitation, effective immediately. You're the new team lead of pet care at this location. You'll report directly to regional management and to me for the next 30 days. You'll have full authority to revise procedures, rebuild trust, and lead by example. She blinked. I don't even know what to say. Start with yes, Ethan replied, allowing a rare smile to soften the moment. Her eyes welled slightly. She nodded, voice cracking just a little. Yes, thank you. I'll do everything I can. That's all I ask. And just like that, something inside Marissa shifted. Not a transformation, not a dramatic change, but a quiet steadiness. Her shoulders settled. Her hands didn't tremble anymore. She wasn't shrinking to fit anymore. She was expanding to lead. Ethan moved through the facility with new purpose. He wasn't a spy in disguise anymore. He was present, visible. The eyes of the staff met his differently now. Some looked away, others lingered longer, curious, cautious. In the grooming room, a teen assistant gently brushed a poodle, whispering softly to calm the pup. No sarcasm, no shortcuts. When she looked up and saw Ethan, she froze for a second. Relax, he said, offering reassurance with a glance. You're doing just fine. She smiled, shy but genuine. Later that afternoon, Ethan gathered the remaining staff in the break room. No podium, no presentation, just him. I don't expect perfection, he began. I expect effort. I expect care. You chose this job because you love animals, and that love extends to the people who trust us with them. That means something. He scanned the room. And if it doesn't mean something to you, then this isn't the place for you. There was no applause, no dramatic reactions, just truth. The kind that landed quietly and sat in the chest for a long time, a hand raised from the corner. Lena. I was going to quit, she admitted. The way Troy spoke to me, how no one listened, I thought I was too soft for this job. But after this week, after seeing what happened, I think maybe this place can be different. Ethan nodded. It already is, because of people like you. And that shift, barely a week old, took root. Not loud, not flashy, but real. As the shift ended, Marissa stayed behind. She worked late alongside the assistant groomer, revising cleaning schedules and product logs. Ethan watched them for a moment from the glass office before stepping outside to call Jordan. We're scaling this, he said. Not just here, every location, from the front line up. The sun had dipped behind the sleek facade of the spa when Cooper appeared, padding softly down the hall, his coat shining, tail wagging with unguarded joy. Marissa held the leash gently and offered it to Ethan. He's ready to go home, she said with quiet pride. He's had a good day. Ethan knelt and wrapped his arms around Cooper, burying his face into the soft fur. So did I, he whispered. Because he hadn't just come to fix a store, he came to find out if the heart of what he built was still beating. And that day, for the first time in a long time, it was. Kindness doesn't always arrive with fanfare. Sometimes it's silent, steady, showing up every day. Sometimes it's a clean water bowl, a soft word, a towel folded with care. And sometimes it's cookies in a break room. It was just after 3 p.m. when Ethan walked in. No clipboard, no preamble, just a plate of warm cookies from the cafe down the street. He placed them gently on the counter and waited. One by one, the staff filtered in. Some paused when they saw him. Others looked down, unsure. Marissa came in last, uniform rumpled, hands still dusted with pet hair and sanitizer. She gave him a nod, one filled with quiet respect. "This isn't a meeting," Ethan said. "There's no agenda, no memo. I just want to hear from you. No filters, just honesty." The room was still. Then, from near the coffee machine, Marcus, one of the kennel techs, spoke up. "Honestly?" he asked. Ethan nodded once. Marcus leaned forward. "We didn't think anyone from the top actually cared, like, ever. We figured corporate only showed up when something needed patching. But when you listened, when you acted, we realized we weren't invisible." Tina, the assistant groomer, added from across the room, "I've been here since the place opened, 5 years. Never once did someone from corporate walk the floor or ask how I felt. What changed?" Ethan didn't hesitate. "I stopped assuming silence meant everything was fine." That hit. Eyes darted. Heads nodded subtly. Then Lena spoke from the back, voice soft but steady. "I thought caring made me weak, that I didn't belong, but now, maybe I do." Ethan looked her in the eye. "You do, more than most." Then came the hard question, from Jamal, the weekend tech. "You're here now, but what about next month, next year? What stops things from slipping back?" Ethan nodded, appreciating the courage it took to ask that. "Accountability," he said. "Starting today, this location has a new structure. Surprise inspections, anonymous feedback channels, performance reviews that actually matter. We're building a culture that protects what matters most, trust, and we'll hold the line." Because it wasn't just about clean kennels or perfect grooming reports. It was about the unseen work, the emotional labor, the silent compassion, the kind that builds something real. And now, Paw Haven wasn't just a spa. It was becoming what it was always meant to be, a sanctuary for animals, and for the people who cared enough to fight for them. "But more than anything," Ethan said, "leadership starts right here, in this room, not just at the top." A low murmur moved through the group. Not loud, but steady. A quiet acknowledgement that something was shifting. Marissa spoke next. Her voice wasn't forceful, but it carried with clarity. "People will follow if they believe the culture is real. Not just for show, but consistent. We can't care on Monday and coast by Friday." Ethan smiled. "Exactly." He leaned back slightly, letting the silence breathe, letting the message sink in. "Here's what I need from all of you," he continued. "Not perfection, but presence. Speak up when something's wrong. Celebrate the people who try. Don't turn a blind eye because it's easier. That's how rot starts." A beat passed. Then Marcus, steady and direct, added, "And if we do that, you'll back us up?" Ethan met his eyes without hesitation. "Every time." That was the shift. Not in applause, not in speeches, but in posture. Arms uncrossed, shoulders relaxed. People exhaled. Not in relief, but in readiness. For the first time in a long time, the room didn't just feel like a workplace. It felt like the beginning of something meaningful. As the team slowly dispersed, Ethan stayed behind. He cleared empty cups, pushed in chairs, wiped crumbs from the counter. He wasn't above the small things, because leadership, he believed, wasn't a title. It was a habit. Later in the hallway, he caught up with Lena. "You once said you didn't think you'd last a week," he said softly. "How do you feel now?" She smiled bashfully. "Like maybe this place could actually be good." "Then make it good," Ethan replied. "Start today." She nodded, then hesitated. "What really made you come down here? Was it just the complaints?" Ethan paused. It was a review. One line. "My dog came back fine, but he seemed sad, like something had been broken." That stuck with him. Lena looked down, her voice quiet. "That's how I felt working here, like something was broken." Ethan's voice was clear. "Then we fix it, together." Outside, the late afternoon sun dipped low, casting amber light across the parking lot. Inside, dryers hummed softly. Paws tapped down hallways. Conversations carried weight again. If you've ever wondered whether real change is possible, even in places that seem too far gone. This was your answer. It starts with truth. It grows with courage. And the next part? That's where culture becomes commitment. The following week, the transformation wasn't flashy, but it was unmistakable. Ethan returned mid-morning. No suit, no fanfare, just khakis, sleeves rolled, and a notepad. The lobby looked the same, but the energy felt different. The new front desk associate greeted him with a calm smile, offered water for him and a peanut butter biscuit for Cooper. It wasn't rehearsed. It was real. The staff moved with presence, not rushing, not stalling, just noticing. He made his way toward the pet wellness wing and saw Marissa walking 2 junior staff through a checklist. She didn't notice him right away. She was focused, explaining not just the how, but the why. Each dog gets a personalized tag now, she said. Color-coded by size, allergies, behavior notes. It's not about being fancy. It's about getting it right. Ethan smiled. That was leadership. Not built on titles, but trust. In the grooming area, the old expired bottles were gone. A new labeled shelf had taken their place, organized by product type, date, and use log. Clean, accountable. Outside, the turf had been repaired, drainage fixed, shade installed. No more forgotten dogs pacing in the heat. And in the private suites, handwritten notes appeared on every door. Cooper loves belly rubs but hates loud noises. Sasha naps in the corner after lunch. Please don't move her bed. Simple, personal, powerful. In the staff hallway, Ethan paused. A new sign was posted above the clock-in station. Bold, direct. Luxury means responsibility. You're not just caring for animals, you're protecting the people who trust you to love them like they do. It wasn't a mission statement, it was a promise. Later that day, Ethan hosted a virtual meeting with all regional managers. He didn't talk numbers, he talked about why. Effective immediately, he announced. We're launching the PAW standard. Every location would now include a rotating ethical oversight officer, chosen from frontline staff surprise inspections, not to punish, but to protect a direct, anonymous reporting system to corporate monthly recognition credits for acts of compassion, not just performance. This company was built, he said, on the belief that animals deserve better. They're not inventory. They're family, and family deserves dignity, even when no one's watching. The room was still. Then, one by one, the chat lit up. Heard. Understood. Ready. Back in his office, Ethan reviewed the first nominations for the newly launched Paw Angels program. The very first came from Marissa. She nominated Lena. She didn't just learn the job, the form read. She protected the heart of it. Ethan stared at that sentence, rereading it 3 times. He looked up at the framed photo of Cooper on his wall, paws up, tongue out, joy unfiltered. It had once reminded Ethan of what they were selling. Now it reminded him of what they were protecting. He called Jordan into the office. "This one's ready," he said, handing over a folder. Jordan opened it. "Marissa?" Ethan shook his head. "Lena. She's not loud, but she listens. That's the kind of leadership we need next." Outside, a delivery van unloaded fresh bedding, cleaning kits, and new enrichment toys. A breeze lifted the new Paw Haven banner above the door. It no longer read, "Deluxe Suites." Organic treats. It simply said, "Where care means more than comfort." Because Ethan had learned something priceless. The soul of a business isn't in brochures, it's in break rooms, in after-hours check-ins, in the girl who cried and stayed anyway. In Portland, Ethan sat in the back of a training session. Lena, now wearing her trainer badge, stood at the front. She didn't raise her voice, but everyone was listening. "When you work here," she said, "you're not selling comfort, you're protecting trust. People hand us their most vulnerable family members. That's not a task, that's an honor." Silence followed. That silence was the sound of a culture taking root. Back at headquarters, behind Ethan's desk, hung a quote. Not from an exec, not from a motivational speaker, but from the review that started it all. My dog came back fine, but he seemed sad, like something had been broken. Ethan had built this company to create joy for animals and peace for the people who loved them. But somewhere along the way, systems replaced presence. Good enough replaced good. Never again. Because leadership isn't about being seen, it's about being there, especially when no one claps. Because someone is always watching, not to judge, but to learn what's acceptable and what's not. Now, as he watched Cooper sleep behind the glass, peaceful, safe, and loved, he didn't see just a dog. He saw a promise kept, a place that finally matched the brochure. And for the first time in years, Ethan Langford didn't feel like an executive. He felt like a founder again, a steward of something that mattered. Because luxury, it's not marble floors or soothing music. It's consistency, it's presence, it's dignity. And dignity, once lost, can be found again. If you're willing to look closely, if this story moved you, if it reminded you of what leadership really means, let us know how it made you feel. And if you believe more people should see what happens when compassion walks in quietly, share this with someone who needs it. Hit subscribe for more stories of undercover transformations, quiet leadership, and the unexpected power of doing the right thing when it would be easier not to. Because the world doesn't need more companies, it needs more care. One pet, one person, one choice at a time.